Hello, welcome to a new episode of Rants with Danny Shi. Today is March 8th on this side of the Pacific. And we have a guest on this show this week. Just hearing his first name, you will tell that he's a very smart and very intellectual person. He obviously has the same name as myself. He is the current hitting coach on the CTBC brothers, Daniel Catalan. Welcome to the show, Daniel.
Thanks, bro. Nice name. Appreciate it. Thanks for having
Yeah.
me on.
Yeah, honestly it's one of the probably the first time a current member of a CPPL organization's on the show. So this is a very exciting time for this show. First of all, this is your second time in Taiwan, second year in Taiwan. How have you been liking the day of life, the lifestyle of the Taiwanese? So, just being in Taiwan.
Daniel, to be honest with you, I really like Taiwan. For me, it's pretty easy living out here. I like the people, the culture, the food, just the general energy of the country. It's pretty relaxed. I walk around all the time and I'm just like, this is a good place to live. It's pretty chill out here. So I got nothing bad to say about Taiwan. Its people, its culture, its food, its energy. All of that is just been wonderful.
It's your second time around, right, in Taiwan. Is there a little bit, like, do you feel any difference between coming in last year or this year? Like, is there a different mindset or a different thing that you got to get used to, or did you miss something during the off season about Taiwan?
The first time you go live in a country, you step out of the airport, you kind of all of a sudden everything is new. You're looking around, just wondering what it looks like, wondering what it's like. Um, This time around, obviously not necessarily have the same feeling when I landed in the airport. It was more of like okay, I know exactly where I'm going. I know what I'm getting into. Came into my same room from last year, and it's like, okay, I've been here before. I know what restaurants I'm going to eat at. I know what my routine looks like. So in that sense, it was cool. It was cool to come back to something and not have to kind of like spend that energy and feelings on trying to figure things out and taking in the newness. I mean, taking in the newness is always cool whenever you go live in any country. Um, but at the same time, being able to come back to a place and feeling that comfort of knowing what you're about to get into is also really, really cool. And that's what I felt this time around. So yeah, excited to be back, and um, hopefully the season goes well. Hopefully living out here goes well again, and
Mhm.
yeah, like I said,
Yeah.
nothing but nice things to say about Taiwan.
Yeah, and you mentioned the newness at the airport, and when drive, you take on however you're leaving the airport, that newness. It doesn't feel like you're foreign to that because you've been to so many different places. I mean, I there's a fantastic piece online that basically takes the audience through all your stops before getting to the CTBC brothers. I think that was published like before the season last year, so like right around when you got the offer from Taiwan, but it went through almost step by step where you've been through, all the countries you've been through, all the cool stuff that you've experienced. It looks like you've played in France, you've been to Australia, you've been Poland, and then you have a academy in Chile, and you were part of the bull running crew in Spain. I mean, all of the stuff that you've gone through. So and all the places that you played baseball in. Not only were you there just to find a job, but you were in baseball communities all over the world. So before coming to Taiwan, like out of all of the places that you've been to, which one do you think is most important to you?
Yeah, so I think you're referencing an article from Baseball Jobs Overseas, um, which is kind of a platform that helps connect players that are looking to go play overseas. Basically, players who didn't make it to the pro level in the States, or players that were playing professional or indie ball, something like that, and kind of decided that they wanted to go a different route and go play overseas. For me, coming out of college, it was something that I knew that I wanted to do from the beginning. Um, not from the beginning of college, but from kind of as my college time was winding down, right away I knew that this is something I wanted to do. I started looking at baseball overseas, found baseball jobs overseas, um, created a profile on their site, and ultimately I ended up going to Spain in 2015, the year after I graduated from university. Um, but from there, I just never looked back. I kept getting invited to other places. I kept um, just kind of exploring the boundaries, seeing how far I can go, and ultimately that led to living in 6 different countries aside from the U.S., playing or coaching a baseball game in 17, 18 different countries, and it was never necessarily never necessarily planned out per se. I just wanted to enjoy my 20s, enjoy my life. I majored in sociology. I have a master's in education now, so I'm generally interested in history and culture. I'm generally interested in wanting to teach, not just coach, but to teach. I do think there's a small difference there, but they are one and the
Mhm.
same. At least they should be. Um, so I've always had these general interests. In terms of which place was the most impactful, most influential for me, I moved to Barcelona 10 years ago. Literally, to last month was my 10-year anniversary moving to Barcelona. That was the first time I went to go live in another country. First time I experienced that newness, um, and that place really just kind of jump started me. The first year I didn't get to travel, didn't get to go to a lot of places. Didn't have much money at the time. 23 years old, just trying to live out there and play a little bit of baseball, have some fun. But from there, I kind of set myself up a little better, and I just kept going to different places. Um, People ask me what my favorite place is all the time. I usually say Barcelona is probably one of the coolest cities you can ever visit. The beach, the mountains, the people, the nightlife, the food, the
Mhm.
energy of the place is just amazing. So that place is really cool. Um, but ultimately, in Poland, I was in Poland for 2 seasons. I got to coach the Polish national team for a few years. Made a lot of really good friends in Poland. Learned a lot of the language. Um, I had a great experience out there, so that was probably a really big. It was pretty influential for me, I think, in Poland. That's
Mhm.
where I really started. I was like a player coach for a club while I was there as well. So yeah, I played, but my focus was that's kind of where my focus of wanting to coach and seeing what I can do on the coaching side began. Coaching the national team as
Mhm.
well was really kind of the beginning of experimenting and seeing what I could do. But at that time, I wasn't really prepared. I was still, 24, 25 years old, still just trying to go out and have fun and live in other places. And now at the age of, I'll be 33 in a couple of weeks, and I've kind of formalized my coaching philosophies. I got a better grip on what I have to offer as a coach to players, to teams, to organizations. Because a lot's happened since then, but
Mhm.
initially, yeah, it was just an adventure for fun. Just because I loved baseball, I loved traveling, loved cultures, and little by little, that experience actually turned into something. Um, as you
Yeah.
said as well, I later started a baseball academy in Chile. That's when I really got to explore some of the new, I don't know, I guess some progressive coaching methodologies, using technology, implementing my own system, uh, and ultimately the starting the academy in Chile led to a job at Driveline, which led to a job with the brothers. So
Yeah.
it's kind of all it's all connected. It wasn't really planned out. It's been 10 years since I started, but yeah, I'm happy to be here now, and yeah, it's been really cool to be honest with you.
Yeah. I think if I mean even right now, if there's like a biography of your baseball career, it will be quite long just with the not just the number of stops, but how different culturally every stop has been. I think it's incredible. I'm gonna jump into the European baseball part first because you mentioned you coached in Poland. You first started your entire journey in Spain, in Barcelona. Now, I think Taiwanese fans and Taiwanese baseball, if you talk about it as a group, we were a little taken aback on a few weeks ago during the World Baseball Classic qualifier when Spain took us down in Game 1, and then Game 4 was Taiwan literally put out every single last bit of resources we could in order to get out of that one. And you look at the score, it's like what 6-3 or whatever it was, but there was moments in time where it's really a lot closer than the final box score indicated. And so I think for us there's a little bit of we should probably get to know more about European baseball. And we have a lot of know-how on Korean baseball, Japanese baseball, and obviously minor league baseball, major league baseball. But I think overall we have inadequate knowledge on how baseball has been evolving in Europe. And so I wanted to ask you, like, if you could describe baseball as a sport on the continent, and obviously it's a very multifaceted industry, but if you could describe it in one word, what would it be?
In one word, passionate. That's how you describe baseball in Europe, or just baseball in any country where baseball is like a developing sport. The people are passionate. It's not the largest community. It's not the largest sports community, nor is it the second largest or third largest. They obviously, in most of these countries where baseball is developing, especially in Europe or even like in Chile, it's dominated by soccer, football, however you want to say it. And then there's a bunch of other sports, and then there's baseball. And the baseball communities really only survive, they thrive, they continue to grow due to the passion that the people have. I said this for a long time, and I still believe it. I think that people in Europe, people in Chile, people in any country where baseball is developing and they don't have the same resources, they don't have the access to the game in the same way that we do in the States, or even people here do in Taiwan. I truly believe that people that maintain the baseball communities in these places are more passionate, and they truly love baseball at their core, maybe more than American people do, maybe more than Taiwanese people do. And I say that not to disrespect everybody else, but the amount of work that it takes to keep baseball going, to build the places, the fields that they built, the stadiums that they built, to keep the leagues running, to play games, to have a league that actually functions, right? Like the sacrifices that people make to have this happen is unlike anything I've seen anywhere else. And I just, knowing the American culture at least, people would not do that. No one's gonna wake up at 5 in the morning and drive 5 hours to get somewhere at 10 a.m. to warm up, to play a doubleheader that starts at noon, to finish the games at about 6 p.m., to take a quick shower and get some food, and then drive 4, 5, 6 hours back home, because there's just not resources to maybe get hotels for the night for the whole team and stay there and have this like professional experience. But they're still trying to keep their league going. They're still trying to play. So the amount of things that they do to make this happen is incredible. And I truly believe that they're passionate. They love the game unconditionally, because they're not looking for maybe the greatest fields to play on. They're not looking for all these other things that we're used to in a place where baseball is really developed as a professional sport, as it is here in Taiwan, as it is in the States, as it is in many other countries. So yeah, people in developing countries, I think in one word, it's passion. That's for sure. Unconditional love.
Yeah, and I think you hear we like to hear that baseball is growing everywhere and things like that, but when teams finally face off on the field, and when Taiwan, I think we sent a team to the I don't remember the name of the tournament, but the Czech Republic, they have like a yearly invitational that invites teams from Japan and Taiwan all the time. And that's where I think being able I like last couple of years were like some of the first times I've heard about it. And I think having the ability and having the like you said, coming up with resources to pull those tournaments together, I think it's it's a testament to how the growing population of people who really love the sport in a place where it's probably not so popular yet. And so, but in terms of competitiveness and talent level, it's always a question that's fairly and unfairly talked about in baseball leagues outside of the States. I think Japan gets a lot of this, Korea gets a lot of this, Taiwan gets a lot of this. And so it's unfair because I've talked about how unfair it is on this show a lot, but ultimately people will just ask this question, how does European baseball or South American baseball compare to the United States if you put on a scale of 0 to 100, and 100 being Major League Baseball?
Yeah, I think that's a really tough question, and I don't know if there's a direct comparison. It varies
Mhm.
from country to country, like even within Europe, even within Latin America. Obviously, there's some really good Latin American countries, but I'm talking about countries where baseball is developing, such as Chile, such as Argentina, Peru,
Mhm.
Ecuador, places like that. Um, but in terms of how they compare to professional baseball in the States, if the MLB is 100, that's still really hard. I don't know if I can give a true answer to that.
Mhm.
Um,
That's
the
totally cool.
Yeah, the people who participate in baseball in these places it really varies. It really
Yeah.
does. As you can see with like the Spanish national team, uh, they don't have a lot of people who were technically born in Spain. We can say they're not like straight Spanish nationals. Uh, maybe I don't want to say the wrong thing. I'm pretty sure they are Spanish nationals. They have passports.
Yeah,
They're citizens
for
of the
sure.
country. All of that. But I just mean, um, I know on the Spanish team there's only one person who was born in Spain and grew up playing baseball in Spain their whole life, who developed in Spain their whole life. Uh, that's Jorge Balboa, who was my teammate in Barcelona and was widely known as one of the best players in Spain from when I was there, which is really cool to see him now at the age of 36 or 37, whatever he is, and still being able to pitch, still being pretty decent, especially considering where he came
Yeah.
from. Um, so like him, there's a lot of players in Spain like that. Obviously, for a qualifier like this, they're gonna bring in anybody who is good, who has citizenship, and not just in Spain, but all across Europe. Baseball continues to grow, not just because of the passion of the people who are there, the locals, but also because of the addition. Um, of the immigrant population that exists in all the countries. And this is the same in Chile. This is the same in Spain, um, France, in some other European countries. Maybe it's a little lesser, just depending on the 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 demographics. We can say the language barriers, stuff like that. Um, but yeah, you have these locals who are really passionate, and then you have the immigrant population, and that also loves baseball, such as you saw in the Spanish national team. You have a lot of Dominicans, Venezuelans, Cubans, and those people have lineage that goes back to Spain, which is how they were able to get their citizenships, how they're able to make a life in Spain, or some of them just immigrated there, and they've been living there since they were little kids, such as Spain's third baseman, who got there, I believe, when he was a teenager. He's been there for 10 plus years now. Spanish national, had a good tournament, made some
Mhm.
mistakes there at the end. But yeah, you might look at him and say, oh, this guy is, I believe he's Dominican, um, um, or Venezuelan, but he's been in Spain for 10 years. He grew up playing baseball as a
Yeah.
teenager in Spain. So it's a combination of both things, to be honest with you. It's the locals and the immigrant population really supports baseball, so they kind of just team up and continue and help continue its growth. So because of that, as the Spanish national team, you have a lot of minor league players, ex minor league players, and those guys had experience. So does that mean that baseball in Spain is double A baseball or single A baseball? Like, no way, no way. But
Yeah.
do do you have some players who played at that level or might still be able to play at that level? Yeah, yeah. I mean, you saw that
Right.
on in front of a packed
Yeah.
stadium and probably millions of people watching at home. So like, yeah, they can play and they can keep up for sure. They're just not gonna have the depth. They don't have 60 of those players. They got
Right.
15 of them, right? So
Right.
if those 15 are going to go out to battle, and as you saw, you only need, you need 12, 13 good players in one game, and you can win
Yeah,
it. So
that's right. Yes.
yeah,
So it looks like, from in from from Taiwan's point of view, when we're talking about international tournaments, and obviously that's where most, where the headspace of my headspace, and where the perspective of this podcast is going from is, you got to start looking around and seeing, hey, again, the way that Taiwan beat Japan, you can't sit here and say Taiwan is a better country, best baseball playing country than Japan. You're saying at a given game, your top 20 players have a shot at slaying the dragon. But when you're in the where you are in the food chain, you got to realize that if there is a food chain is a bad example, but if you look down, if you look below, they're given 12 or 13 is going to have a good shot at slaying you, when it comes to it. And so it's I think for us, it's definitely a wake up call. Some of the listeners came back after the last episode and say, hey, it's definitely a wake up call for us. And it's one that probably is time to at least pay attention to what's happening there, because right now, before this, you're like, oh, it's Europe. No, they don't play baseball there. It does, but obviously, again, at any given time, any given game, the gap is a lot closer than people think. I think in Taiwan. Talking
yeah,
about, I want to spend the majority of time on this, which is your coaching philosophy, because it's quite apparent to an average a CPPL fan, especially one that focuses on baseball. We're not, not sliding anybody, but there's some CPL fans that's not there for the baseball. But we're going to talk about that in another show. But it's clear that the brothers' approach on offense, it felt different than went before last year. Now, I'm not going to sit here and ask you what you did, or what was different, or what did you fix, or what was wrong before you got there. I'm not going that route. But clearly you had an idea of what you want to build in an offense, and or offense on the baseball field.
hmm
And so I just want to start with, you know, if you're writing an offensive philosophy book, how would you theme it? What is your like what would be your like your number one topic of that book?
yeah. I guess I get asked this question quite a bit, or got asked quite a bit last year by the media, and I always just kind of gave the same answers. I gave the same answer to the manager, to the organization when they were interviewing me, um, and maybe it's a little general, but I would say that we always have to look at what outcome we're shooting for. Like what is the goal? What is our like our learning objective in the teaching world? Like what are we trying to get at? And then we kind of work our way backwards from there. So I would say, generally speaking, I'd like the players to hit the ball hard, be consistent with that, and then hit it to favorable parts of the field, which is more or less just good angles, not just up and down, but also left and right. Um, if you hit the ball hard, if you're consistent with that, and you're hitting it to good parts of the field, generally 10 to 25 degrees, going to get you up over the infield. Uh, don't have to necessarily hit everything to one side of the field or to the middle or whatever the case is. Um, Hit the ball where they're not. Uh, that's typically what we want to do. Hit the ball hard, consistently, favorable parts of the field. But yeah, how we do that and what we practice in order to make that happen, I think is maybe a lengthier conversation. But generally speaking,
Mhm.
that's what I'm trying to do and trying to teach the players to do. Slightly deeper into that would be maybe more of like our approach to like what we're trying to do when we step into the box. And if I had to keep that simple, I would just say, before two strikes, we want to look for something that we can hit hard, not just make contact with, which out here in Asia is I don't want to say that's like a whole new idea, but
The stereotype is the stereotype is the other way around, where they're just trying to make contact, right?
just trying to make contact, which is great, which is a great skill that they have, which I think why introducing some of the things that I've introduced are pretty beneficial for them because they're already on kind of one extreme end of the spectrum, and I'm just trying to get them to a little
Mm,
more to balance it out a little bit. So yeah, before two strikes, try to find something you can hit hard. You don't have to swing at everything. You don't have to just go for the pitch just because it's going to be a strike. It's okay if you swing and miss early, and uh, and then two strikes, do what you've been doing. Do what you're good at. Like I don't really need to teach you anything there. This is something that Asian baseball culture is probably world leader at. To be honest with you, like you're just really good at being pesky hitters, really good at making contact, at fighting off pitches. Um, I've heard people over here say that they are intentionally trying to foul off pitches more than I've ever heard it said anywhere else. Um, and okay, that's cool as long as it's not, as long as you're not trying to foul off the first pitch, or as long as you're not trying to foul off a pitch when you just have one strike, right? Like stuff like that, which
yeah.
I've heard players say that over here. Maybe not just here in Taiwan, but also working in Japan as well. And I'm just like, oh, okay, you were trying to foul off the first pitch, like that's incredible. Like if I had enough skill to foul off the
Yeah.
first pitch, I would just hopefully feel like I should have enough skill to just get a hit on the first pitch, right? But I
Mm,
I I,
yeah.
I don't know. Sometimes I'm a little baffled
Wait,
by.
are they saying they want to foul off the first pitch even though it's not in the zone, or like their whole they just want to like just like touch it and then that's it on the first pitch? Like, have you
I,
heard stories like that, or?
I'm thinking of like one or two very specific examples, so I don't want people to
Uh-huh.
think that this is
No, no, no.
anything.
I just want to know,
But,
like,
but
like,
yeah,
I just want to.
I
I don't want you to name anybody. I just want to say, like, you've heard those before. Like, they just want to just if it's outside the zone, they're just gonna go.
I heard that working in the Japan Winter League with a player uh, in 2023. So it was my first year working there, and they asked me to like
Uh,
talk to the hitter about his at bat. So I was like, hey, like what were you thinking up there? Like first pitch, like kind of what happened. His response was he was trying to foul it off, and I was just like, oh. Okay, and then I asked one of my buddy who took me, who's also a Japanese guy. He looked at me. He's like, "Yeah, that was even kind of weird for me." And I'm like, "All right, well, I've never heard that one before." But so that's maybe an extreme example. But I do
sure.
see a lot of that. Like it's a 1-1 count. They're gonna get a pitch right on the outside corner, and they end up putting it in play weakly to the opposite field, and it's just kind of an easy out. Um, and and there's a lot of that. So generally speaking, just trying to get them to understand their strengths, understand their weaknesses a little better, and then just trying to get them to maximize their strengths and minimize their weaknesses per se. Or maybe better said, we're trying to get them to maximize their strengths in the game, and then kind of work to minimize their weaknesses while at practice. Um, and in this case, their strength is uh, just right off the bat, their strength is their ability to make contact. Um, but every hitter has a strength. Every hitter has like a zone where they would really like to hit the ball, a place where they get their,
Mhm.
their their highest level of success, right? Like maybe you can slap a single to the opposite field in any count, but like you can also hit a double in the gap if you get your pitch and you have the right intentions. So that's your strength. You can hit a double in the gap. Your strength is also being able to make good contact. So we're going to use that strength when we got two strikes. But before two strikes, we should be kind of looking to maximize um, our other strength, to pretty much being able to reach our ceiling. So these are just general conversations I have with players all the time. It's tough to
Mhm.
say whether I made a difference or not, or the outcome of the season had anything to do with me or not. But I do know what I praise. I do know what I always say, hey, that's a good job on. Um, and I do know what I don't say. I don't ask for a lot of things, and I
Mhm.
think over time, uh, sometimes the things that you don't say, sometimes the things that you don't do actually have a bigger impact than everything else. So I would say that's probably where I've
Mhm.
been able the biggest difference is just not asking them to do things that they've probably been asked to do their whole life.
So from the coaching perspective, there's no perfect swing. So I think it's because every player's swing is a little bit different, and there's probably an end game to everybody's swing, but the path to their best swing is also different. So as your coach, how do you customize your approach to fit every player's distinct abilities?
Yeah, so as you kind of mentioned on that show, they had asked me maybe whose swing I like the most or stuff like that, and I just made the comment that nothing matters more than the outcome. Nothing matters more than ball flight. Pretty much, when you hit the ball, what happens, right? There are swings that maybe like aesthetically they might look a little more appealing to the eye than others, but none of that particularly matters. The only thing that matters is what happens when you hit the ball. So as I kind of said on the show, like my favorite swing was whichever one brings success, because that helps the team win, and that's ultimately what we're there to do is help the team win. And especially on a team like the brothers, we have some really different swings. like we have really different sized players. They have different body types. They have different swings, different skill sets. Maybe more so than any other team. It felt like, to be honest with you, like 1 through 9, like we just have different looking people up there who take different looking swings, but they have success in their own right. The comment about there not being a perfect swing, that's something I think we all generally know, that there is no perfect swing. And when you really dive into researching the swing and getting a lot of data on it, you realize that you can test all the best players in the world. You can put them in a biomechanics lab. You can put them through K-Vest. You can get their blast numbers. You can do whatever. And you think that you're gonna run down and get some answer. You think that you're eventually gonna kind of, I don't know, find like the holy grail of swinging, and all of a sudden, like, the coaching world just opens up and you can help every player because you know it all. And it's just not true. The more you dive deep into players, not just like watching them, not just taking video, but kind of being able to look at the way the body moves, the way they're moving the bat, by the numbers, in a very objective way, you start to realize that, like, there are a lot of really good players who have a lot of success, who have different swings. And when you see that, it's just hard to say what is best. It's hard and obviously that leads to the idea of, like, there is no perfect. There's only what is good for that player and what helps the team win. In terms of what I do to help different players with different swings, different abilities, yeah, like I'm gonna tell different players different things, 100%. But I do have a framework. I have a general philosophy that I try to tie everything back into. So even if I have different players, that doesn't mean that we're trying to do completely different things. I'm allowing the player to explore their own body. I'm allowing them to self-organize, to complete different tasks, to try to get that same outcome. And they might do it in a different way than somebody else. But the outcome we're looking for is generally the same. Hit the ball hard, consistently, good parts of the field. But I don't sit there and tell people that, they have to put their hands here, or they have to stand this wide, or like anything like that. Those are all like motor preferences to the individual. So I'm not ever trying to take away their individuality. I'm just trying to create environments and give cues that are going to help each player individually. And again, I think it goes back to having a framework as a coach. There's a lot of things that I believe in. I can dive way deeper into it. I'm generally trying to give the players objective feedback, and I try to really stay away from subjective feedback. Obviously, there's a time and place for all of that. There's a time where I'm like, hey, in my opinion, this is what I think. But I always try to give them something that is objective, something that's measurable, something that we can come back to and see if there's a difference made. And those things are going to change from player to player, but the framework remains the same. I'm trying to give them this type of feedback. I'm trying to put them in these types of environments. I'm trying to get this type of outcome. But the individual is always, again, going to self-organize to complete all of those tasks. I have a master's in education, so I went to school to be a teacher. And one of the cool things I learned while doing that was something called universal design for learning. And in short, it's basically like, if I have 30 kids in a classroom, how do I accommodate all 30 people so that they reach the learning objective, which is to learn X, Y, or Z. So when you have 30 individuals, you have one learning objective, but you have 30 individuals. You can't get them all there on the same path, but we know that the path has to lead here. So you have to create a classroom, you have to create a lesson plan in a way that multiple individuals feel like they're a part of this, and there's different routes that they can take. For example, like somebody might be really good at reading the book and pulling out the answers, and that's the way that they're going to learn and learn the information. Somebody else might want to be really good at, like, they might be like an audio learner. They might want to watch a video or hear something and then give feedback. Some people might be able to write you an essay to give you what the answer that you want. Some people will be like, hey, can I just do a presentation? Like, stand up there and talk about it, because I don't really like the writing part, right? And how they get there doesn't really matter, as long as that they get to the learning objective. And if your classroom is flexible enough, then everyone within it has an opportunity to get where they need to go. So I try to apply the same general methodologies to coaching, in that, yeah, I have these outcome objectives that we want to reach, but I understand that I have different types of learners. I understand that I have different bodies, different individuals, and how I guide them to get to the end is going to be different, but it's all within my framework, and it's all to meet the ultimate objective. And that is where I think the art of coaching comes in. You know, it's not a science. It's coaching is not exactly a science. I think you have to, at least when it comes to hitting, you have to understand the science, but hitting is also kind of an art. So when it comes to teaching, it's kind of the same thing. Like, there are teaching practices that you can use, but you also have to be a little artistic with it. And I think that it's also, coaching is also not militaristic. You know, we're not here to give commands and have people repeat them. I think coaching in that way is like the teacher who says, you know, the book's on your desk, go ahead, open the chapter, and then answer the questions. Like, that shit's boring. You know what I mean? Like most people are just gonna check out. Like, it might work for, you know, if you have 30 individuals, it might work for 5 of them, but you know, you're gonna lose a lot of people in the process. So it's the same way with coaching in that way, where, yeah, it might work for some. Maybe the floor is gonna be a little higher because you're forcing everybody to do something, but the ceiling for players is also gonna be lower, because you're kind of not allowing them to explore. You're not presenting opportunities for them to be themselves. So yeah, so I think that's for me, it's not difficult. It's not that difficult to have different players and understand that I need to do different things. But I would say in the coaching world, yeah, I can't confidently say that maybe a lot of coaches think about it this way, at least in my experience in coaching with different people at different levels across the world, you know. And I don't think you need to go get a master's in education or you know, continually study all kinds of stuff to understand this. I think intuitively the best coaches and teachers know these things, but it has helped me. It's helped me tremendously, learning to be a better teacher, because it allowed me to be a better coach.
Yeah. So I think I thought that was great, because again, like, I think as a, you know, student or as a player, you want directions, but at the same time, it's also, you know, you want to have, especially you're dealing with adults, right? And so you can't just tell them to do this, and that. So there's got to be some sort of a middle ground there. For I've always wanted to ask somebody that's from Driveline this question, because Driveline is something, if like for a layman's person like me, Driveline is that magical place that people go in there and then they come out and they're Superman, or but there's also it seems like the before driveline was a thing, it was like there's still a debate between how seriously you should take stuff like that, especially in terms of um, data science or analytics. Now that's obviously more of a thing for fans and supporters. I think in terms of baseball people, or people in big baseball organizations, they're understanding and realizing that and implementing a lot of those features. But as a fan, a layman's person like us, can you give a very quick, it's probably hard to do, but quick synopsis of why we should buy into the philosophies of what Driveline is teaching, or what the so-called the newcomers of baseball are saying?
Yeah, yeah, I think that's tough. It's an issue I face, I think, regularly, where people think like, oh, Daniel, he's just doing the Driveline thing. And I'm like, do you guys even know what that is? Like, they're like, oh, what if the player doesn't want to do the Driveline thing?
Mhm.
I'm like, what's the Driveline thing? I'm just always like, what do you think it is? Because
Yeah.
I don't think, I think it's often misunderstood, or at least misinterpreted, from my experience from being out here, where people just see it online and they see players going in, and kind of how you said, like, they go in and they come out and they're better. And yeah, sure, I think the goal is always to get players better. But first, I want to make it clear there's no like magic pill. There's no, magic. You don't just
Right.
there's no dust you just throw on people and it fixes everything. That is never the case. Development is just like learning. It's continual education, being conscious of what you're doing, and understanding what truly matters. In simple terms, Driveline is about being data driven. So then the question would, be like, okay, well, like what exactly does being data driven mean? Well, like there is a lot of data out there. There's things that we can base decisions off of. If you tell me someone's a good hitter or a bad hitter, like, give me some numbers to back it up, right? If you're like, this guy's a good hitter and this is why, give me some numbers to back it up. If it's like you're struggling, and this is why, give me some numbers to back it up. So we want to make our decisions based off of as much data as we have available to us. Now, over time, a place like Driveline has made a lot of data available. So, we start off again with like, what's the ball doing when you hit it, right? We have those metrics. We have in-game metrics. We have ball flight monitors, such as hit tracks and cages, Rapsodos, all that stuff, right? Then we go back like, well, like, the ball's doing what your bat's doing. Well, we have metrics on what the bat's doing. You can see it online now with like Hawkeye and all the stuff that the MLB is providing through StatCast. But if you don't have stuff like that at practice, you have stuff like blast sensors, and like we can look at those numbers, right? And it's like, well, your body's typically doing, I mean, the bat's typically doing something as a result of what your body's doing. And that's where like people are always using the eye or video, and like, yeah, sure, that's worked. And I'm not saying people don't have the eye for it. They do, but can we measure it? And then can we put some numbers to it? And yeah, we can. And that's what, I mean, Driveline realized all these things. Like, yeah, there's stuff out there that's measuring this. There's K-Vest, and ultimately they realized like there's limitations with K-Vest. So they built their own biomechanics lab, and they started creating more data points. And they have those numbers. So then it's like, all right, well, like, what's your body doing? It's like, well, your body is also dependent on how it's interacting with the ground. So like ground force, can we measure that? Like, yeah, we can. We have force plates as well. So ultimately, like, we combine all that information to come up with a plan so that the player can reach the learning objective, which is to have more success in the field, aka their batted balls be better than before, right? Like, because that's where we started and that's where we're ending. We start there, we end there, and then we follow through with this plan, and then we retest, we retest, we see if there's any positive adjustments that were made, or maybe there's like negative implications to what we were doing. And if there is, or if there isn't, whatever the case may be, we're going to recreate the program to kind of accommodate for whichever direction we're going in, and we repeat process. So it's a little bit more of like a, I don't know, like scientific approach to how we're developing. But to me, that just makes sense, right? Like if you're going to spend 6 months with the player, and the player's always looking at you like, "Hey, coach, does that look better? Does that look better?" Yeah. It's like, I don't know. Maybe some coaches like being the person to answer that, but I don't, because my honest response is like, yeah, sure, it looks better, but like, let's go check something that we actually know, right? Like what's better, your ball flight? Is it your outcomes? Is it the bat's moving better? Is it your body's moving better? Is it all of them? Is it neither of them? Like, I don't know, right? And I think that's where that's more of the Driveline thing. Like, get as much as information as you can, get as much data points as you can, with as much technology as you can have access to, and then create a plan that's centered around that. And then you can kind of bring in your own art of coaching to this system, this program, right? And so, yeah, so when they say like, oh, maybe people don't like, players don't want to do the Driveline thing, I'm like, well, the Driveline thing isn't telling them to do X, Y, or Z. The Driveline thing is like, let's just get as much information as we can on what you're doing, and let's talk about it. And in this process of talking about it, together with the player, we can figure out what's our next step. Hey, man, like, you know, you're a pretty good contact player, but you just don't swing fast enough. Like, and let me show you how fast the other players on the team swing. Let me show you how fast all-star players swing, MLB players swing. Let's see what the gap is. And then it's like, what do you think about it? You know, the player's like, oh, damn, like, yeah, I get it. I see why I'm a minor league player. Then it's like, cool. Well, like, I got this plan for you. You down to try it? And if they say yeah, then we move forward, and then we'll give them feedback as much as we can, and we'll revisit it and say, hey, man, you've gotten better, or you haven't gotten better. So let's try something else. That's all the Driveline thing is. That's it's in simple terms, right? It's not about telling everybody to do the same thing. You know? So
I think baseball. Baseball is one of those. Oh, I don't want to say baseball. Like, I don't want to just say it's a baseball thing, but you know, in many industries, the incumbents are powerful, and so when you introduce something new, it takes a while, and it takes a lot of education and marketing and messaging to get their logic through. And I think Driveline's about as successful as a new thing in a very traditional industry as it gets. And so and it just takes time. I think like Taiwan is far from the beginning of this, you know, so-called revolution, and so it's going to take time to get it there. But at the end of the day, the results are the results, and Driveline's it's not pretending to know what it's not pretending to know more than they actually do. They're showing you, they're giving you what they're seeing, and you can. From what you're saying, it also feels like you're just giving them the data. If they want to come in here, get tested, they can just take it and do what they want to do with it. You're not forcing your opinion on them either. And so I think I don't see anything wrong with it. It's just sometimes I think the messaging doesn't get through correctly, or there are people in situations where they want the messaging to not get through, and so I think, you know, I don't think there's a reason to not at least try to do it. And so I think the brothers are on a much in Taiwan, the brothers are on a path that is getting there the fastest, but there's work to be done. I think and you know, hiring the coaches like yourself and having the facilities that the brothers have, I think that's amazing. Before I let you go, there's I always ask these questions to overseas players or coaches that lived in Taiwan. And so number one is, what's the most surprising thing about Taiwan's day-to-day lifestyle? I asked people like, what do you think about it? But like, I want what is something that's most surprising to you about Taiwan's day-to-day life?
Oh man, to be honest with you, I think one of the biggest differences of living in Taiwan as opposed to other countries uh, is that to me it just seems really chill, like really laid back. It's quiet. Typically, I'm the one making the most noise. You know, like I'm the one that they come up to on the train and they ask me to stop talking out loud. It's like all right, like those things are going on, but sometimes I'm walking down the street and it's like I can't hear anything or anybody, but it's just so relaxed and it's so cool and like um, it's a lot different than Chile. It's a lot different than driving down through downtown LA. It's still there's a lot of people around. There's big cities, but it just doesn't feel as like hustle and bustle as like some other places. And I don't know if that was surprising or not, but it's definitely something I think about all the time. Where I'm just like, people are just pretty chill here. It is generally pretty relaxed. So that was cool, and actually, then it brings to another surprise, which is like the environments, the ambiance at the baseball games,
Oh
which is
yeah,
like
gee,
all
so
right, well, like, and this is where they come yell, like so
it's
so
like
that's
that's where they spend all the energy and
yeah.
their voices, right?
Yeah, yeah, 100%. And like for me, it's the opposite. Like in LA, like I'm always there with friends. We're loud. We're walking around with speakers,
Mhm.
playing music, like doing all that. And then we go to games and like we just kind of chill and watch the game as baseball
Sure.
fans, you
Yeah.
know. And over here, people are just chilling. And then when they go to the games, it's just like
Yeah.
whoa! It's like okay,
Yeah.
like this is their outlet. This is their outlet, which is
Hmm.
pretty cool for me to watch. I'm often in the stadium, like when we're not hitting or we're on defense. I'll be in the dugout
Yeah.
and I just kind of look around. I admire the people and I see them dancing.
Hmm.
I notice the
Hmm.
fans especially the fans that come every game, and I start to see. I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, there's the dad and the kid again, and they're wearing matching jerseys again. Like oh,
Yeah.
there's that fan again, and like
Hmm.
it's really cool. And I would say that's been really surprising, but really awesome. Is just the Taiwanese baseball fan culture.
Hmm.
Um, where the people are really nice, they're really dedicated fans, but they're also really respectful. If I walk out of the stadium, my girlfriend comes to visit, she's waiting for me outside the stadium. So like, I don't take the team bus. I walk out, and like all the fans are out there, and if they see that I'm busy or I'm about to meet my girlfriend or whatever, like they'll say hi.
Hmm.
Maybe seldomly will they come up and ask for anything because
Hmm.
they think they're pretty respectful of people's personal lives
Hmm.
as well, you know.
Hmm.
Um, so
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's cool, man. I like the place out here. I like the culture.
Yeah. I think the Rants with Danny Sheep fans really want to know whether you've developed a boba order, a go-to boba order in Taiwan,
I
or your go-to 7-Eleven selection.
Yeah, I was gonna say in terms of like boba or anything, I'm maybe not the best person to ask. I drink I drink coffee in the morning with no sugar, and then I
Uh,
just drink water throughout the day. So I don't really take in like sugary drinks.
mhm,
Um, but my girlfriend, when she's here, she's having boba all the time. And
mhm,
I think here in Taichung, there's the original like boba restaurant. At least that's what
mhm.
they say.
Yeah.
Uh, so
Yeah. There's a debate
we've
about
got
that, but yes.
I know it's debated, but it's really nice. It's kind of like a fancy boba spot, and
Yes.
I took her to that, and she was,
Yes.
she liked it, so she's always getting boba. I'm just not a big fan of tea, just in general.
Mhm.
7-Eleven, love it. We live right across from a 7-Eleven. Uh, their like microwavable food is unbelievable
Yeah.
in terms of like maybe it's not exactly what you want, but if you're ever like, dang, I'm hungry, it's kind of late, not too sure, you walk over there, get like a little pasta that they have in there, they'll heat it up for
Mhm.
you, and
Yeah.
that'll always like do the job.
Yes.
It's like it just always does the job, and it doesn't feel like you're just eating trash either. It's like
No. Yeah.
it feels decent. So 7-Eleven, I'm usually in there for that. Um,
Mhm.
but yeah, that's it. I would say yeah, I'm in there for the carbonara pasta at 7-Eleven. That's probably my go-to over there.
All right, sounds good. Yeah, 7-Eleven, take notes. Maybe get some more pasta in the Taichung locations and the Pingdong locations too. Now that looks like you're working both sides for the season. Thank you so much, Daniel, for one of the probably, if I remember correctly, the first current member of a CPP organization. So really, really appreciate taking time out of your spring training schedule. Can't wait to see what the brothers do. I mean, well, I'm a Monkeys fan, so I'm not gonna cheer for the brothers per se. But my mom is a Brothers fan, so at times we'll cheer for the yellow. But thank you again for so much, Daniel, for coming on. And this was a very fun time for me. And we'll see you guys, all of your viewers, next time.